This is TWiT.
So the big story of the week, though, is none of that, none of the above.
TikTok?
Turns out, no, there's no TikTok involved. Turns out, starting in January, Elon Musk quietly started buying up shares of Twitter, and it finally became public last week that he had bought 9.2% of Twitter, outstanding Twitter shares, becoming the biggest stakeholder in Twitter by far. Jack Dorsey, who just left as Twitter CEO, only has 2-point-something%. So $2.9 billion later, Elon Musk has 73 million shares. And this is a filing that was made March 14th. Since Elon has updated the filing, which is kind of interesting, maybe, I don't know, maybe he thought maybe it was a little sloppy. I don't know. He's reclassified himself in the filing as an active investor. And of course, shortly after this, the CEO of Twitter, Prasad Agrawal, announced that Elon was going to have a board seat. He took a seat on the board. Now, I think there's a reason why. When you're on the board, you can only buy up to 4.5%. They prohibit you from becoming an owner.
Okay.
Well, he's limited to 14.9% to 15%.
I'm sorry, did I say 5? Yeah, 15. Yeah. He already has for 9%, limited to 14.5%. So, because I think this is a bear hug. I think that what this really was we don't want him. We think he might be actually angling to buy Twitter. He has the money easily.
Oh yeah,
hundreds of billions. So, and by the way, he's already made money. Twitter's stock price went up 27% after he did this. If he were just interested, and by the way, that's how Elon Musk used Twitter.
Yeah.
To pump stock.
Pump it up and dump it.
If he were interested in just making money, yeah, he could have dumped it, but he didn't. And I honestly think this is on the heels of Elon's saying, well, I think Twitter, free speech. Should we make a new Twitter? Because there's not enough free speech on Twitter. Which is ironic because no one's healed him, but I guess maybe he's thinking of the former president. I don't know. Then on Monday, he put up a poll that said, do you want an edit button? Although it was tongue-in-cheek because, as you might notice, the poll misspelled yes and no. So in a way, it's like, see, if we had an edit button, I could have fixed this. But look at that, 73.6% yes, 4 million votes.
This followed Twitter having said on April Fool's Day that they were working on the edit.
Well, and in fact, they said, no, it wasn't an April Fool's. We've been working on it for a year, and we're going to do it. So this is a big week for Twitter news.
Can you go over the timetable again? Was the board seat offered?
That was after he bought 9.2%.
After he announced he bought.
So what did somebody say yesterday? Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Giving him a board seat.
This dude should not get any. This pisses me off so much. I'm like, this is just a person who behaves badly, who behaves unethically. People venerate him. It drives me absolutely up the wall. Just from a standpoint of what does he really have to offer? Do you want someone on your board who is going to possibly taint your brand and do things that are illegal? I like Twitter. I wish they didn't bow and kowtow to this sort of play acting and bad behavior disguised as, I'm just kidding. Like,
How soon do you think we'll
Stacey,
see some
SEC
SEC investigation?
in a bind? I'm sorry, Ann.
I think, I don't know. Ant, what did you ask?
I was saying, how soon do you see an investigation happening from like the SEC or someone? Because it just seems weirdly timed.
I'm sure the SEC is going to do something. Elon is doing a great job showing how little teeth the SEC actually have.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it's just their willingness to go against him.
Well, I don't think there's any law he's broken at this point.
You don't think so?
No.
He did previously
it's just
on
ethically.
You're allowed to buy shares in a company you like.
Yes.
Warren Buffett eats
But what
at
no,
McDonald's
what about,
every morning, has an Egg McMuffin. He is also a major shareholder. Not illegal.
Right.
I like Egg
Right.
McMuffins. I think I'll buy some stock.
Yeah.
Well, that's his MO. But from a ownership perspective, and when some of this was reported, I believe there are questions about that.
Oh, really?
That's the securities issue.
Okay. Anil Dash agrees with you. He said when he saw the tweet from Parag Agrawal saying that Mr. Musk is on the board, he said, yeah, that's bad. Wish they would have taken any of the many other suggestions of active users who could have been added to the board over the years, including those who are developers or experienced creators of healthy communities. Anil, who's great, has a point, which is Twitter has had a very checkered history of the developers, mostly negative. And yet it's the developers and users who have pushed the platform along. If it weren't for Chris and his hashtag, right? Chris, what's his? I can't remember his last name now. Who invented the hash? Sorry?
Messina, right?
Chris Messina, who invented the hashtag. It was users who created the @reply. That was an ad hoc solution that Twitter eventually incorporated. Twitter would be a very different platform. So I think Anil is absolutely right. But money talks. And
I think Stacey's really right here too. I think Twitter was kind of stuck in a bind, and it's a bear hug, and that's all true. But it doesn't look good for the company because they do this, and they're going to allow someone to bully them into what my fear about this is that it's this fake free speech cancellation talk where they're going to be compelled to carry noxious speech, and that's going to create an environment. I mean, you think the problems on social media now. Imagine if they were forced by a billionaire or by right-wing government, either one, both of which are talking about this, of saying you must carry hate speech. You must carry.
According to Mike Isaac at the New York Times, Twitter was already discussing having Musk be a more active participant, according to two people with knowledge of the conversation.
Do you believe that?
But why?
Do you believe that?
Well, because he has 80 million followers and tweets several dozen times a day.
That's not the real Twitter. You know, the
he
real Twitter
actively uses their platform to break the law. And he also seems to embody what is most noxious about the platform in the terms, in the way he uses it.
Casey
and the
Newton
way people engage with him.
calls Elon Musk a mischievous trickster god.
A Loki?
I mean, in a way he is. He's puckish.
Puckish. Yeah, in fact, Casey says, I likened it to Loki buying an ant farm.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So it's, so this is interesting because Casey Newton on his Platformer newsletter talks about the timeline, which actually, if you need this timeline to take it all into context. Mm-hmm. So you remember that Elliott Management, which was an activist investor group, took a 4% stake in Twitter 2 years ago. And at that time, they were very unhappy with how Twitter was doing, and they wanted Jack Dorsey out because the stock price was stagnant, user growth was stagnant. Elliott, the activist investors, left the board a year later, according to Newton, apparently satisfied with Twitter's progress, but as a condition of leaving, set aggressive goals for the company, grow the user base by 100 million people, accelerate revenue growth, gain market share as a digital advertiser, none of which Jack Dorsey was able to do. Casey thinks, and I think it's widely agreed, that that's why Dorsey left, is that he could not make the changes Elliott wanted. And, of course, he put Twitter's CTO in charge, Parag Agrawal. And Agrawal has done nothing to, by the way, hit those marks either. In fact, it lost money.
But he's only been... How long's he been there?
Well, more than a quarter, couple of quarters. He's lost money in the last quarter and added 6 million new users during his tenure, not 100. So that's Casey saying Twitter remains vulnerable to activist investors who might work to force out Agrawal or once again.
But then we get into this attention economy and what do you want to build? So if Twitter wants 100 million users, the easiest and fastest way to do that is to engage people with trollish behavior, right? Is to piss people off. It's kind of the Facebook playbook. So is Twitter saying with this, they're planning on going down that playbook because growth at all costs matters? That's what it looks like.
Well, again, quoting Casey, Musk's presence on the board will help them fight off activist investors because now he has such a big stake and he's on the board. You know, he can, if single-handedly say to the shareholders, I will beat Elliott's offer or anybody else's offer. So his status as both the platform's largest shareholder and most influential board member will likely give him soft power that exceeds his technical authority. It did help the stock price up 27%, so shareholders will like that. And it, by the way, it's continuing to go up. It wasn't just a bump; it's continuing to go up. Casey thinks, and he might be right, that Musk is a supporter of the decentralized platform that Dorsey was talking about before he left, and Agrawal still wants to do, kind of the Fediverse.
That is what makes me
that
happy.
would be interesting.
If Blue Sky happens, then that makes me very happy.
And that would be one way to answer that criticism of, censorship as well. Just as on Mastodon, anybody can.
Speech is a commodity layer.
Yeah. So in fact, Gab is on Mastodon. Truth Social's running on Mastodon. It's not part of the Fediverse, but it's running on the Mastodon software.